Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Preserving History and Democracy. My name is Cynthia Mendoza, Communications Coordinator for the Doña Ana County Clerk's Office, and I am joined today by our amazing producer, Bernardine Caporale. How are you, Bern?
I'm great this morning. I'm really looking forward to today's podcast.
Yes, we have some great guests.
Yes, really great guests. We have two officials from Las Esperanzas talking about the historic Mesquite neighborhood here in Doña Ana County. And please welcome Corrina Miramontes, president of the group, and historian Martha Rodriguez. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
I'm so pleased that you're here. I really appreciate the support of the podcast. It's an important topic and part of our history here in Doña Ana County, and I appreciate you coming in and showing your support and maybe getting some support after a lot of listeners tune in.
Yes.
That would be great.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Do you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourselves?
My name is Martha Rodriguez, as I said earlier, and I've lived in Las Cruces for about 10 years now, actually 10 years. But I grew up in El Paso, so I'm very familiar with this part of the Southwest. I loved growing up between mountains and, just beautiful hiking and things like that. I was away for a long time, but came back. And with my husband and I restore historic properties. And we restored properties in both historic districts adjacent to downtown. Okay. And that's how we fell in love with the Mesquite Historic District.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome.
Very nice. And Corrina?
Yes. Well, I grew up in the area. I went to Hermosa Heights Elementary School. I graduated from Las Cruces High School. My grandparents and my father came up from Chihuahua. After I graduated, I did, my mother's family was from California, so I did go back and forth, and I spent about 30 years back in California, and I moved back to Las Cruces about 3 years ago, and grew up in the neighborhood. My grandparents and my father are buried in the cemetery at St. Genevieve's.
Oh, wow.
My aunt still, works at the church and, so I have a pretty, close relationship with the neighborhood.
Very
Awesome.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what is the translation for Las Esperanzas, and what is your group's mission statement?
Yes. Well, I think a lot of people realize that you can't really literally translate a lot of Spanish. And so Las Esperanzas, the literal translation would be hope, but I like to add the hope. So the group was named, in hopes, right? And so that's, and
So much prettier in Spanish.
Yes,
It really is.
yes. Yeah, and there's kind of a sentimental, I think to esperar or to have hope is something I think that we embrace in the Latin culture. And so I think that was probably one of the reasons why they chose that name.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have our mission statement that I will read to you verbatim.
Great.
It's, Las Esperanzas is an educational, social, and charitable organization established to advocate for the Renaissance, renewal interest of the Mesquite Historic District, the original town site of the city of Las Cruces, through revitalization of our neighborhood, the protection of our culture, the common welfare of the community, and advocating for the preservation and renovation of our buildings. When I am asked what our mission statement is, I shorten it as we're the cultural and historic preservation group of the original town site of Las Cruces.
Which is so amazing, the original town site. That's something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Such a great area, too, because you can kind of see the historic side of it. There's
Right.
still so many older buildings there, and it's a great area.
There's one little fact that I always like to share with people, especially the local people, so they really have pride with it. It's the most intact historic neighborhood, I believe, from San Antonio to San Diego.
Wow.
I believe I'm not sure of the exact number, but I believe there's over maybe 700 adobes in that neighborhood.
Wow.
Wow.
So I think that's very special.
That's very cool.
incredible.
Yeah.
Can you tell us, Martha, who the founder was of Las Esperanzas and what her motive was in organizing this group?
Yes, absolutely. So the founder of Las Esperanzas was Consuelo Lerma, and Mrs. Lerma had noticed that there was a deterioration in the culture and in the historic buildings in the neighborhood, and she was concerned because she was very proud of living in that neighborhood, having raised her family there. And so she called upon a few neighbors and friends, and all women, by the way. And so they decided that they wanted to do something about that and, preserve that culture, preserve the historic aspect of the neighborhood. And so they approached the city officials, and unfortunately didn't get much support there. So they decided, well, you know what, we'll do it on our own. So they called on other neighbors. They had a really strong group in the beginning, as you might imagine. They wanted to not only preserve the culture and the history, but also help the youth that was coming up, that was growing up in the neighborhood. So they actually liaised with a police officer that was interested in the neighborhood. And so they created what is now called the Weed and Seed program in Las Cruces. And that program, what it does is that it helps with after-school care for families that may not have the income to send their children to regular daycare. So an after-school program. They help children with their homework. They during the summertime they have care during the day, lunch for the children, etc. So that was a really big thing that they did, because they knew that children are our future, right? They're the future of our neighborhood. They're the future of our community. So that's exactly what they did. They shortly thereafter decided to become a nonprofit. So we're now a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The group was established in 1999. So last year we celebrated our 25th year anniversary.
Bravo.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
It's wonderful.
That's a long time.
So yeah, we've been in existence for 25 years, and all of us are volunteers.
So the original town site you mentioned back in 1849, tell us about that time period. What did it look like?
Right. Always learning and wish I knew so much more, because you could feel it there.
Yeah.
You can really feel it. So the story goes is, Doña Ana was a little small village to the north of us. It was a settlement, and it had survived like native attacks, starvation, and it began to grow rapidly. And so to relieve overcrowding, Doña Ana, the village mayor, Don Pablo Melendres, which you'll probably hear about a lot throughout history, asked Lieutenant Saget to survey a town site further south. So in the spring of 1849, using a rawhide rope in the town of Las Cruces was platted. 84 city blocks with designated blocks for business district, church, a camposanto, a cemetery. The eastern portion was designed for family homes. And there, Klein Park, under that large cottonwood tree, families drew lots from a hat to determine which lot that they would own in the original town site.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And today, many homes in the Mesquite town site are still the homes that were drawn from that lot that day.
Did the Camino Real move through the original town site?
It absolutely did. Mesquite Street is the Camino Real. It's the road that went from Mexico City to Santa Fe.
Unbelievable.
I believe at some point, too, it's also the Merchant Trail, because people used to have stores in their homes. And, even up until when I was a kid, you could go into the tiendita, and knock on the door, and some
Wow.
older person would answer, and you'd be like, I want a candy bar and a Coke. And they would take your money and they would give you your little snack.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was pretty special.
That is a special
great.
time to grow up in,
Yes.
huh?
Can you tell us about some of the important people and places of the Mesquite Historical District?
One of our most prominent former residents was Clarabelle Williams.
Yes.
Clarabelle Williams was the first African American who attended NMSU.
Yes.
And unfortunately, there was still segregation in her era. And so she was forced to sit outside the classroom and listen in on, the lectures that were going on. But against all odds, she succeeded. She got her degree. She became a teacher. And so we're very proud of the fact that she lived in our neighborhood. We have other people like Pat Garrett, who lived in the neighborhood.
Pat Garrett lived on
Wow.
Mesquite.
He did. Unfortunately, and this is where historic preservation comes in. Unfortunately, his home was destroyed a few years ago. Not that long ago, actually.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and I know we'll talk about more about preservation later on in the conversation, but yes, unfortunately, that happened. We also had Dan Sosa. He was Chief Justice of the New Mexico Supreme Court.
Wow.
Jerry Apodaca was Governor of New Mexico. Rudy Polanca was Judge of the Court of Appeals.
Okay.
And, we have had so very many important people that that grew up in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
We have a few also that are still alive and well
Yeah.
and still live in the neighborhood. For example, former state representative Antonio Lujan. He was instrumental in many projects in the city, such as the Aquatic Center.
Oh, is that
which is-
right?
awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
he was one of the state representatives that provided funds for that.
Oh, wow.
Also, the Jardín de Esperanza, which is a community garden in the neighborhood, and many others. He's still actually a member of Las Esperanzas, and he has helped a lot with his wealth of knowledge. He's been an incredible member.
That's awesome.
We also have Irene Oliver Lewis. Irene Oliver Lewis is an artist, but she's done so much for the city, for the city of Las Cruces. For example, she established the Alma de Arte School, and she helped bring about the Arts and Cultural District in the downtown area, which actually Mesquite neighborhood is a part of. Part of our neighborhood is within the Arts and Cultural District. They have brought funds into our neighborhood, for example, to put additional lighting in the northern portion of the historic district. And they can only operate within the boundaries of the Arts and Cultural District. But, thankfully, like I said, part of our neighborhood is within the district. We also have an author, a famous author, Denise Chavez.
Yeah.
Denise Chavez is also, she does not reside in the neighborhood. She actually resides in the Alameda Historic District, but she has a store and has had, it's a bookshop that has been in the neighborhood for many, many years.
Awesome.
And so hopefully you've read some of her books, but she's wonderful. She's wonderful.
She is the one who told me about your group.
I
And
had her
said
as a
that-
podcast
yeah,
guest last
we
year.
did,
Yeah. And she's awesome.
And she said, you have to talk to them.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And then it just happened. I was at the market and asked you about it. So,
Wonderful.
like, everything fell into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
Yes. If I could chime in on I feel like something that we've kind of missed out on a little bit, and we always want to give, honor the land and honor the history of, and forgive me for not knowing more about the Tiwa tribes that are in our neighborhood as well. And I believe on the north side of Mesquite Street, there are stories that I've heard of that it being like a gathering place for multiple tribes, like a safety zone where, they would come and trade or come and gather. And I just would hate for that to be missed,
Yeah.
and honoring the cultures of the Apaches and the Tiwas and whoever was here.
No, that's very
before.
important
Yes.
because a lot of times, one of the requirements, if you will, of the podcast requires us to find documents. And a lot of the indigenous people were pre-documentation, and they still are a huge part of our history.
Yes.
Definitely, and one thing that I wanted to add, when you ask the question about important people in the neighborhood,
Yeah.
actually, I wanted to add that I'm glad you brought it up, Corrina. That the Pito Manso Tiwas are still in the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
They have lived there for a lot longer than the rest of us have lived there.
Right.
They were there when when Don Pablo Melendres sent his lieutenant to divide out the plots there. They were already living in the neighborhood, and so we have a lot of families actually also that were from the original families that moved into the area.
Wow.
As a result, when the township was established.
Right.
So, I think that along with all the preservation of all of our adobe buildings in homes is really important for people to hear that we still have original residents in the neighborhood.
That's incredible.
Or descendants anyway.
Yeah.
We also have a ongoing representative, Frida Firefly Flores of the Native Tribes in Las Esperanzas. It's always on our board.
I love that you guys have, people from all sort of backgrounds still involved in the community. It's amazing.
It's all inclusive, it feels like.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. That's great.
So how did this area survive the urban renewal that happened? That kind of blows my mind. It's like, what did you guys do right?
Yes.
Wow. Well, I mean, I wish I was a fly on the wall in some of those meetings back in the day, to really, and I definitely, of course, I wish I knew more about really what happened, but the stories are so emotional about what happened. And when you look at that, so for those of you that don't know what the Urban Renewal Project is, in 1960s, in the mid-60s, a very grand St. Genevieve's Church was sold and removed from the area, and I believe it was like eminent domain around the church as well, for some kind of urban renewal, and I mean, the church as it is right behind you, so beautiful, so grand, adobe walls, right? There's stories about the neighborhood meeting, and they were just trying to prevent this from happening.
So the neighbors, the residents, banded together. So they actually were attending meetings, but there were a lot of meetings that were behind closed doors.
Sure.
Back then, a lot of some politicians, some other
Some
people.
shady stuff going on.
Yeah. And so knowing that the next block that was going to be destroyed was Campo, the neighbors just banded together and they said, no, you are not going to destroy our neighborhood.
Yeah.
You stop here, stop right there. And so that is the reason that our neighborhood was preserved. Otherwise, I don't know how far they would have gone into the neighborhood, but I know for sure Campo would have been destroyed. And right now we have some beautiful historic buildings along that street.
Yeah.
I was telling Corrina that about 3 years ago I moved from New York.
Oh.
And I was driving past the Jardín every day and looking and driving and looking and driving and saying, what is that? Can you tell us about that? Beautiful artwork there.
Yeah, and it sounds like super recently, and that Antonio Lujan had some influence on creating this. I believe that there was like a want to have gateways into the neighborhood. And in the gateway to the north, they just really wanted to celebrate also some of the families that had done so much for the neighborhood. And Las Esperanzas advocated for capital outlay funds over the years for improvements on projects through the neighborhood. And I believe that was one of the projects. It's located on the corner of Spruce and San Pedro, and it depicts photos of families from the neighborhood. And these photos tell the story of the families from the neighborhood, such as there's a photo of Sylvia Camunes in her wedding gown.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, being paraded in the neighborhood, which I heard was an old like tradition. The young brides that were going to be married were like paraded through the neighborhood.
how
So
sweet is that?
That's really neat capturing
Yeah.
that. And the tiles were all done by the students at the school that Irene Oliver Lewis started.
Wow.
De Arte. So all the kids from the art school are the ones that did, the
That's
artwork.
amazing. Yeah.
And Martha might have some more insight on the jardín as well.
Yeah, I mean, the jardín is basically the story of our neighborhood, right? It, as Corrina mentioned, we were not members back then. It was several years ago. But what the Las Esperanzas members did is they collected photos from families in the neighborhood, especially families who had been in the neighborhood for several generations, right? And so that's what was depicted on. I know you have a beautiful photo behind you here
awesome.
of a couple of the tiles, and Saint Genevieve was depicted because that was such an important part of the culture and the unity of the neighborhood.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, they tried to depict the history of the neighborhood and its people, but also things that are and will always be important to us.
I love the 50s car one. That's a very cool one.
Martha, I understand that Las Esperanzas has plaques that can be displayed on houses. Can you tell us a little bit more about those plaques and how you can get one and what does it mean?
Yes. So Las Esperanzas had this idea of coming up with plaques that would show historic properties and that people would know that that particular home or property was historic. And so the design was actually done by one of our members. And what we ask of people, if they want to get a plaque in the neighborhood, it's for the neighborhood.
Right.
But if they would like to get a plaque, what we ask of them is to write as much as possible about the property and the people that live there. So they are kind of forced, I guess, to do some research on those properties.
Yeah.
And the reason we do this is twofold. One, to have the story of that particular home or building.
Right.
But number two is also so that people will learn about their neighborhood and about their home and who lived there.
Right.
Was it a historic figure, or was it, a resident that had been there for generations, etc. And so that's the reason we do that. But we do once they give us that information. It's just a simple form. You ask how people can get a plaque. All they have to do is fill out a short form and do some research as much as possible.
Right.
We don't have any limitations or, say you have to do so many paragraphs, etc. No,
Right.
just as much as people are able to find.
Right.
And then we provide those plaques. We also provide a certificate with the story that they provided to
That's
us.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So I found a 2018 plaque certificate recipient. That's quite a group.
Oh, yeah.
That's quite a group you have there.
There's
I read about a self-guided walking tour in the Mesquite District as something that was coming up in the future. Any word on that?
Well, I think that the hope is to take these stories from the plaque, and tell those, stories. And we've have a partnership with Visit Las Cruces.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, yes, yes. And I believe that they host those on their website.
They have an app.
Cool.
They have an app. Visit Las Cruces as an app, and that's where the information is for the self-guided
Oh,
tour.
that's very
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah, and like Corrina said, these stories are stories that we collected via the plaque process,
Right.
which is great. I mean, it's served several purposes, that those stories from people.
Right. It's so important to get them too before they're gone.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So is there anything new in the neighborhood these days?
Yes, we have several things that are going on in the
Awesome.
neighborhood. Every year, Las Esperanzas has an annual meeting. I mean, we meet on a regular basis throughout the year, but we have a special meeting that we call our annual meeting, where we come up with projects that we'll be working towards in the coming year. So several of those projects are things that we've been working on, not just for 1 year, actually. Some of them are long-term. So, for example, one of those big long-term projects is the Loman and Amador redesign. We've asked the city to redesign those two streets because they are really wide. They both include 4 lanes, which is really nice, I guess, for drivers, but not so for pedestrians.
Yeah. Right.
And we have a lot of accidents that happen almost on a weekly basis on those two streets. We have had several deaths, because people are racing through those streets, and we just feel like if we really are to become a walkable city, especially in the downtown area, then that has to happen. That redesign needs to happen. We have partnered on this project because it's such a big project with Alameda Historic, the Depot Neighborhood Association, and together we wrote a letter to the city officials to work on that. So we'll see what happens, but we really need to do something about those two corridors, because it is just really, really dangerous.
Absolutely.
We also have lighting, additional lighting that will be done in the neighborhood. A couple of years ago, we received some funding from capital outlay funding from a couple of our legislators, and with those funds, we are partnering with the city to put additional lighting in the southern portion of the Mesquite Historic District. As I said earlier, the Arts and Cultural District also received some funding, capital outlay funding, to do the northern portion of the district. And so we've been working with the city to get those two projects moving along. In fact, we just had a public meeting last week to talk to the neighbors that are still thinking about providing,
Easements.
access, easements to the city for those lights. Let's see what else. Right now, we have a mural that we're working on that will depict the Camino Real, because it is a part of our neighborhood. We worked on it Saturday, and then we'll work on it again this weekend. So it's exciting. We are partnering with the Arts and Cultural District, the Downtown Las Cruces partnership as well. We just recently worked on a grant that was awarded to the Arts and Cultural District, which is very exciting. Yes, we'll be working on several murals throughout the neighborhood. Our goal is to depict the story of Las Cruces, the history of the neighborhood. We feel that we firmly believe, actually, that the history of the original town site, which is the Mesquite Historic District, is the story of Las Cruces.
Right.
And so we'll be depicting that story throughout the neighborhood. We also will be setting up some plaques that will have the history of individual homes
Oh,
Okay,
great.
cool.
or buildings in the neighborhood. So that's really exciting. We'll have other things that we discussed in the grant was to have an artist that will have I guess internships for young artists.
Oh,
That
cool.
will help
Oh,
them.
very nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
so that's exciting. That's something that
Yeah.
we're looking forward to doing this coming year.
Yeah, we got to get the youth in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's really something that
They've
we
got
want
the
to-
energy we don't have anymore.
right?
Well, that's great. I think murals are such a great way to depict
Right.
history. I know when we pass a mural with my kids at the car, they'll be like, "Oh, what's that about?" You know, like I'm kind of like, "Okay, let me Google it real quick." So I think it's a great way to kind
It
of
is,
learn about
yeah.
your history. So great job.
Yeah, I love some of the cities, that we visit have little booklets or,
Yeah.
even an app where it shows each mural, right? I
Yeah.
just recently ran across one from El Paso, actually,
Cool.
where they have a series of murals, and it's a booklet
Oh, nice.
that they give away, and, people pick it up at a museum or the cultural centers.
Oh, cool.
And that would be amazing if we could do that for once we have all those murals painted.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I know you guys sometimes have events at Klein Park. Are those still things that you do annually, or how do those work?
We kind of treat it as the square of the neighborhood,
Yeah.
right? Because it's not just Mesquite, so it's like our little
Your gathering spot.
yes,
almost. Okay.
yeah, our little
Cool.
sacred square,
Yeah.
our gathering spot, and so that's why these relationships are really important for us too. The big, one of our really neat projects is Mis Memorias, which is we're gathering and recording stories from people in the neighborhood and their experiences of the neighborhood, and we've partnered up with New Mexico State University. Eventually they will all archive these
That's
for us,
great.
but it's been a project that Martha's been working on for a while, and it's kind of what brought us together. And it's a really neat project. So if you know anybody that you feel like should be interviewed, or
Maybe we'll get some people at this,
yes,
this episode.
right? Yes,
Yes, so yeah,
Awesome.
it's you mentioned earlier how critical it is for us to preserve stories, right? Well, this is a perfect way to preserve oral histories from our people that either grew up in the neighborhood or have a connection to the neighborhood, have lived there or live there. Even we are collecting stories not just from longtime residents, but also newcomers, because we want to hear from them what drew them to the neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah.
Why do they enjoy living there, etc. And I always tell people, can you imagine hearing your great grandmother's voice and telling her story about her early years, her growing up years? Wouldn't that be amazing to
Yes.
That would be
to
amazing.
hear that voice, right? Those voices.
And you're in good hands with NMSU and the archives.
Yes.
They do a fabulous
They're
job.
amazing.
Yeah.
We've
Yes.
worked with them several times with other
Yes.
projects, and they're incredible. So.
Awesome. We did have a neat little summer project, and in hopes to carry it on next summer. We started a growers market, a food market in partnership with the city. It was definitely a struggle to get vendors, but there was definitely people showing up to buy every day. So if you know any vendors out there, and if that's something that they want to move forward with, I think that that's something that's missing in the city, a food market, a food specific market, and we really had a great time, and we really enjoyed hearing the feedback from the community of the necessity of it. So.
Okay, where there's a need,
Yeah.
if you build it, they will come, right?
Exactly. So if someone wants to support or join your group, how can they get in touch with Las Esperanzas?
Well, coming to our meetings would be, one of the best ways, and our meetings are the first Thursday of every month. We do have a Facebook page. Our Facebook page also has the link to our newsletter. And our newsletter and our Facebook page give a lot of information about what we have going on. When, we send out the newsletter to let people, remind people of the meetings and, any events that we're like co-collaborating with. Our email is lasesperanzas1999@gmail. You can get a hold of us there.
1999.
And we also
it was a good
have
year.
It was a good year.
And we also have a web page, Las Esperanzas, Las Cruces webpage.
And it's a beautiful website you have.
Thank
Just
you.
very informative. I got a lot of information. I gleaned a lot of information off of it.
Great.
Yeah, it's
Great.
very telling, yeah.
Great.
We'll make sure to link all those too
Yeah.
on
Wonderful.
our page. So.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
So is there anything you'd like to say to encourage new members to join maybe?
Yes, absolutely. We would love it if people who are interested in historic preservation, in cultural preservation as well, and whether they do or do not have a link to our neighborhood, I think it's important for all of us to have that connection with a group of people that are really interested and passionate about the culture of Las Cruces and the historic preservation of Las Cruces, because, I always tell people our original townsite doesn't just belong to the residents of the Mesquite Historic District. It belongs to Las Cruces. So if you want to preserve that, if you want to preserve those beautiful old buildings, please come and join us.
That's a good pitch.
Joining neighborhood groups and joining groups with a voice is a really great way to make changes. And, when you think of things in this world, a lot of people get frustrated, a lot of people complain, but the best way to make those changes is within your voice and yourself. And it's a very, very important to stick up for things that you believe in, and being part of Las Esperanzas or being part of a group like Las Esperanzas is an important way to have a voice in your city.
And it's grassroots. It basically starts in your neighborhood.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that.
Yes.
I like
so
that a lot.
that would be the last thing I would like to say.
Well, thank you so much for coming and
Yes.
sharing your experiences, your history, your knowledge, just amazing stuff you brought with us today.
Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for the
joining us.
invitation. We appreciate it.
Yes. Well, that does it for this episode of Preserving History and Democracy. We want to thank our special guests once again, Corrina and Martha, for joining us. I'd like to thank Bernardine Caporale for finding us another incredible topic. And I'd like to thank Jacob Slaughter behind the camera for everything that he does. Make sure to follow us on all our social media platforms and listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll see you next time.